Every man has a breaking point, though he often doesn't realize it until he's already standing on the edge of it. Even the calmest, most patient, most gentle men carry a line deep inside them that cannot be crossed forever. A line that, once broken, changes everything. The tragedy is that women often test this line without ever meaning to, almost instinctively. They don't always do it out of cruelty, but out of an unconscious need to feel a man's boundaries. A patient man doesn't start out angry. He doesn't begin his relationship bitter or resentful. He begins as someone who believes love is built on tolerance, understanding, flexibility, and forgiveness. He thinks that giving the benefit of the doubt is noble, that listening without interrupting is a sign of respect, that offering second chances will eventually prove his loyalty. He tells himself that being calm and steady is what will keep love strong. But patience has a shadow side when it isn't met with respect. Slowly, without noticing it, he starts mistaking silence for strength, and she starts mistaking silence for permission. His willingness to forgive becomes a habit she exploits. His calm presence becomes the background noise she no longer hears. And while he thinks he's holding the relationship together with his steady hand, what he's really doing is teaching her how far she can push without consequence. It doesn't happen in one moment. It's a gradual erosion. A sarcastic remark here, a withheld affection there, a moment of dismissal or entitlement that he lets slide because he doesn't want to make it worse. And so the cycle repeats. He bends, and she learns he'll bend again. He swallows his truth, and she learns he'll swallow more. Until one day, without warning, the line breaks. A man doesn't break because of one argument, one cold shoulder, or one disrespectful comment. He breaks because of the accumulation. It's not the storm that shatters him, it's the constant dripping of small wounds that wear him down over time. A patient man endures what others might walk away from immediately. He believes in trying, in staying calm, in explaining, in forgiving. He tells himself that every relationship has rough patches, that love is supposed to stretch you, that tolerance is part of commitment. So when she dismisses his feelings once, he lets it go. When she mocks him in front of others, he laughs it off. When she withholds affection, he assumes she just needs space. None of these things, on their own, seem catastrophic. But together, repeated again and again, they chip away at his spirit until there's almost nothing left of the man he was when he began. This is how death by 1,000 cuts works. It's slow, almost invisible. He doesn't even recognize it happening at first. He believes he's being strong by enduring, but what he's really doing is losing himself piece by piece. And in the process, his patience is not appreciated, it's exploited. To a woman who thrives on emotional stimulation, his calm feels flat, even boring. So she pokes, she provokes, she pushes, not out of pure malice, but out of a need to feel intensity. She wants fire, even if it's destructive, and he mistakes her chaos for something he needs to soothe. He leans in while she pulls away. He tries harder while she demands more. Each time he bends to meet her halfway, he loses another piece of his dignity. Until eventually, the man who only ever wanted peace is forced to find it in anger. The heartbreaking truth is that a man never sets out to become bitter. Anger isn't in his nature at the start. He doesn't begin a relationship with resentment in his chest or fire in his words. He begins with hope, with a willingness to give, with the belief that his patience will be rewarded with love. These are the men who hold doors, who listen carefully, who remember the little details, who try to understand moods and weather storms with gentleness. They are raised to think that sacrifice is noble and that endurance is proof of loyalty. For a time, it feels like they're doing the right thing. They convince themselves that being endlessly patient will earn them the respect, admiration, and peace they crave. But what they don't realize is that too much tolerance doesn't breed love, it breeds contempt. Many women don't truly respect a man who lets everything slide. They may enjoy the comfort of his steadiness, but deep down, they don't admire it. What they admire, even if they never admit it, is a man who can set a boundary and enforce it without hesitation. When she learns she can cross his line and still be forgiven, when she discovers that his tolerance is infinite, her subconscious doesn't see kindness anymore, it sees softness. And softness, in the harsh world of emotional dynamics, is dangerous. Because once she senses weakness, she tests more. She provokes more. And with each test, he loses more ground. It's not that she wants him to collapse. It's that, instinctively, she needs to know he can stand firm. And when he doesn't, when he absorbs every blow with silence, the respect she once felt for him begins to rot. She stops looking at him as a man to follow and starts seeing him as a man to endure. The transformation of a patient man never happens with fireworks. It doesn't come with shouting matches or sudden explosions. It happens in silence, almost invisibly, like a slow dimming of light in a room you once loved sitting in. At first, he notices small things. The sarcasm in her tone. The way she pulls away when he reaches out to hold her. The subtle roll of her eyes when he speaks about something that matters to him. He brushes it off because he doesn't want to seem dramatic. He tells himself she's stressed, tired, going through a phase. So he keeps forgiving, keeps overlooking, keeps carrying the weight of her moods as if they're his burden to bear. But inside, something is changing. He's no longer as eager to start conversations because he knows they'll end with dismissiveness. He stops planning little surprises because he remembers the last time she barely noticed. He grows quieter at gatherings because he can't forget how she made a joke at his expense and then called him sensitive when he didn't laugh. None of this comes with rage or accusations. It comes with withdrawal. He gives less of himself, not because he doesn't love, but because love has become a battlefield where he's always the one losing. The silence begins to replace his words. Where he once explained, he now shrugs. Where he once pleaded, he now lets it slide. And slowly, the man who was once full of warmth becomes a version of himself that feels cold, unreachable. She notices the difference, but instead of asking why, she complains that he has changed. What she doesn't realize is that he hasn't changed at all, he's simply exhausted from trying to be seen in a place that only wanted to test him. When a man grows distant, people often assume it's because he's angry or because he's found someone else. But more often, his distance is born out of exhaustion. It isn't malice that pulls him away, it's survival. Vulnerability, once offered freely, became a weapon used against him. His affection, once a gift, became an expectation. His generosity, once appreciated, became invisible. And little by little, he realizes that nothing he gives will ever feel like enough. So he begins to retreat, not to punish her, but to protect himself from being drained any further. It starts subtly. The man who used to plan every detail of a date stops putting in the effort because effort went unnoticed. The man who used to pour his heart into conversations now gives shorter answers because his words were met with sarcasm or silence. The man who used to reach for her hand without thinking now keeps his hands to himself because her touch no longer feels inviting. To her, it looks like he's cold, detached, maybe even indifferent. But beneath that surface is a man who once tried with everything he had until he realized trying only left him emptier. This is what it means to be emotionally homeless. He is still physically present, but he no longer feels like he belongs in the relationship. His love, his effort, his patience, they were all poured out into a space that never gave back. And so he shuts down quietly, not with a slam of the door but with the quiet locking of his heart. She doesn't notice the shift until it's too late, because she never understood that distance is not born overnight. It's carved slowly by neglect, until the man she thought would always endure finally disappears inside himself. The breaking point of a patient man is not loud, though its impact is devastating. When he finally reaches it, there is no screaming, no dramatic confrontation, no chaos to mark the moment. Instead, it is calm, eerily calm. After years of giving more than he received, after bending until his spine could bend no more, he simply stops. He stops chasing, stops explaining, stops apologizing for things that were never his fault. He stops offering love to someone who treated it like background noise. What she doesn't realize is that when a man like this stops, it isn't a pause. It's permanent. Because he's not leaving out of anger, he's leaving out of clarity. The patient man's breaking point is not about revenge. It's about reclaiming himself. For too long, he tried to hold the relationship together with silence and endurance, believing that if he carried more weight, it would all balance out. But when the scales never tipped, he finally understood that love without respect is not love at all. And respect cannot exist without boundaries. The moment he realizes this, his entire perspective shifts. What once felt like devotion now feels like self-betrayal. What once seemed noble now seems foolish. When he walks away, he doesn't slam the door. He closes it softly, with dignity. He carries his pain quietly, but he carries his self-worth with him too. And while she may one day look back with regret, remembering the man who stood by her longer than anyone else would have, he will not return. Because once the patient man breaks, he doesn't mend in the same place. He rebuilds stronger, colder, and wiser, no longer willing to hand his peace to someone who mistook it for weakness. What most people never see is the silence that follows a man's final breaking point. To the outside world, it looks like he simply moved on, like he shrugged his shoulders and left without much thought. But inside, there's a heaviness that words can't capture. Years of swallowing his truth, of forcing himself to be the calm one, of absorbing disrespect until it became normal, those years don't just vanish. They leave scars, invisible but deep. He learns lessons the hardest way possible, that patience without limits is self-destruction, that loyalty without reciprocity is servitude, and that love without respect is nothing but slow poison. These realizations don't make him bitter, they make him cautious. He becomes a man who no longer gives blindly, who no longer believes that endurance alone can save a bond. He starts carrying himself differently. Where he once tried to prove his worth, he now lets silence speak for him. Where he once begged to be understood, he now walks away at the first sign of disrespect. It's not about arrogance, it's about survival. A man who has been broken knows the cost of ignoring his own boundaries, and he will never pay that price again. The warmth in him still exists, but it's guarded, given only to those who truly earn it. And though women may be drawn to the mystery of his distance, they'll never fully understand the cost of the lessons that shaped him. The tragedy is that by the time the world finally sees his strength, it's forged from pain that could have been avoided if his patience had been met with gratitude instead of exploitation. He is no longer the man who bends endlessly, he is the man who stands, unshakable, in his own worth. When a patient man finally learns to stand unshakable, something fundamental in him changes forever. He no longer confuses silence with strength, nor forgiveness with love. He sees clearly that tolerance without boundaries doesn't make him noble, it makes him vulnerable to those who don't value what he offers. This clarity doesn't arrive overnight, it comes after years of disappointment, after countless moments where his heart was given freely but received with indifference. Once he accepts that respect is the foundation of love, everything else falls into place. He no longer tries to convince anyone of his worth. He no longer explains himself to those who have already decided not to listen. His presence becomes enough, and his absence becomes powerful. This transformation is not about becoming cold or closed off. It's about balance. The same man who once endured without limits now carries himself with quiet authority. He is calm, but not passive. He is kind, but not naive. He is open, but only to those who have proven they can be trusted with his vulnerability. What once looked like endless patience has been refined into discernment. Instead of pouring himself into relationships that drain him, he invests in spaces that pour back. Instead of bending until he breaks, he stands tall, unafraid of walking away when his peace is threatened. To those who meet him later, he seems mysterious, hard to move, maybe even intimidating. But that's only because they're encountering a man who has already survived the breaking. He is not a storm, nor is he fragile glass. He is steel, forged in fire, unyielding where it matters most. And the greatest lesson he carries is this: real strength is not how much you can endure, it's knowing when to stop enduring.